Hello and welcome back to our Legend of Heroes Trails in the Sky 1 playthrough. In our last episode, we met with the Mayor of Bose, who was a rather eccentric young woman, and she took us on a very expensive business meeting to that posh restaurant in Bose. She gave us a letter to give to this general bloke, General Morgan, who's supposed to be at this Harken Gate. When we got here, he wasn't here, naturally, because no one's ever where we need them to be when we want them to be. So we spent some time in the inn with a rather flirtatious young gentleman, and Joshua was saved some rather uneasy moments when the sentry came in and told us that the general is back and is prepared to see us. So that's where we're on our way to now. The sentry says, "I could hear some arguing. Was there some kind of problem with another traveller?" Estelle shakes her head. "No, nothing big like that. That aside, could you let us meet with the general?" The sentry nods. "Yeah, he's inside. His office is the last door on the left. Make sure you don't go wandering around in other places where you're not permitted." "Well, you know the first place I'm going, don't you?" "Hello. Royal Army soldier." He says, "I was supposed to be off duty today, but then we received an order to maintain ready status here at the fort." "Oh, okay. Could you at least give me something?" "Nope, apparently not." Alright, let's see what's up. Ooh, hello. The soldier says, "Because of what happened 10 years ago, all of the guards here are very tense. I hope we never have another breach of this gate by the Imperial Army." How about you? This soldier says, "The border is always confronted with threats from the Empire. Therefore, we must be extremely prudent in our actions, whatever we do. Otherwise, it could possibly give them a pretext to invade again." Well, I'm sure they don't. What kind of empire would want to invade? And you blokes don't keep any naughty magazines under your beds, do you? No? Asking for a friend. This soldier yawns. He says, "I was involved in the search for the missing airliner until late last night, so I'm dead tired." Okay. Joshua says, "The end of the hall on the left. It looks like this is the general's room." Let's just leave and go down this one at the end. This door is locked. Oh well. Let's knock this time. Estelle says, "Alright, here goes nothing." A gruff voice asks, "Are you here on behalf of Mayor Maybell?" Estelle nods. "That's right." The gruff voice says, "Very well, come inside." Scheherazade says, "Thank you for seeing us." General Morgan says, "I'm glad that you came. My name is Morgan. I've been tasked with guarding the Harken Gate by Her Majesty, Queen Alicia." Scheherazade says, "It's an honour to meet you, sir. We're all here on behalf of Mayor Maybell." Joshua adds, "Please pardon our intrusion during such a busy time." General Morgan says, "There's no need to apologise. I've known Maybell since she was but a child. I couldn't imagine ignoring her request, much less one from the mayor. Estelle asks, "All right then, would you please read this first?" We've handed over Mayor Maybell's letter. General Morgan says, so it's about the missing airliner, is it? Under ordinary circumstances, that information would be strictly confidential, but considering this is a request coming from her, I'll tell you everything I know. Estelle grins, "Sweet!" The General is ever so slightly shocked. "Why are you happy about something that doesn't concern you?" he asks. Estelle thinks to herself, "Crap, I should have kept my mouth shut." Joshua says the mayor appears quite distraught over the situation, and so we've wanted to do anything we can to assist her. General Morgan says, "I see. Well, I'm glad to hear that she has been blessed with some good people around her. Let me get right down to things and explain the status of our search efforts." Scheherazade says, "Please do." General Morgan reports the airliner Linda disappeared on its way to Roulette after taking off from the Bose landing port. Presently, we have units searching all areas of the region, but we have yet to come up with anything. Joshua asks, "So what you're saying is the possibility of the incident being caused by monsters or an accident is fairly slim, right? If an airship of that size had crashed, it likely would have been discovered in the initial search efforts." General Morgan says, "Yes, that's exactly right. In fact, the flight route between Bose and Roulette goes over some plains that allow a commanding view of the land. And of course, the probability of the airliner going down in Valeria Lake or the ocean is extremely low." Estelle says, "Boy, am I relieved to hear that it's probably not a worst-case scenario like that." Scheherazade says, "So if those have been ruled out, then that leaves the door open to the possibility that the airship could have been taken, right? Which makes me think that the only remaining motives must be to loot the cargo or demand a ransom for the hostage. Or demand a ransom for the hostages." Joshua says, "In other words, a hijacking, right? Also, considering the geographical conditions, it could have been a covert operation carried out by the Imperial Army." Estelle says, "And that would be really big news if that were the case." The General gasps. Estelle asks, "What's the matter, General?" General Morgan says, "I was just thinking that that's quite an impressive assessment for some civilians. We also considered the possibility that the Imperial Army was involved, so we've enforced strict regulations on the flow of information. An international incident, if taken lightly, could result in another war." Estelle sighs, "War." General Morgan continues, "But, thanks to the small mercies of Aidos, the possibility of another conflict disappeared early this morning." A certain organisation sent a letter to the royal family and Orbital Ship Company claiming responsibility and demanding a ransom for the passengers. This organisation goes by the name of the Capua family. Estelle asks, "The Capua family? It couldn't be who I think it is, could it?" Joshua says, "It certainly appears to be that way." General Morgan says the Sky Bandits, who have been operating in the shadows in the Bose region and are led by 3 siblings at their head. I take it that you've heard of them. Estelle says, "Not only have we heard of them, we just had a run-in with them in Roulette. I just can't believe those good-for-nothing thieves have managed to create such a big incident here in Bose." Joshua says, "Estelle." Estelle laughs. Oops. General Morgan asks, "You had a run-in with them in Roulette?" I'd heard that some of their gang had showed up in Relent, but... Estelle says, I think he's on to us. Scheherazade sighs, yeah, because of you and your big mouth. General Morgan says, I see now. I thought the way you were able to analyse the situation was strange for mere civilians, but I never would have guessed that a girl and a couple of kids like you were bracers. Estelle says, who are you calling kids? Joshua says, just for the record, Mayor Maybell did in fact request that we come here and talk to you. General Morgan bellows, silence, deceivers! Get in here, men! Estelle gasps, he looks pretty pissed. Scheherazade says, so this is how a hard-nosed military man acts, eh? Soldier asks, what's the matter, General? Second soldier asks, did these visitors try to pull anything funny? General Morgan says, these bracers need to be shown the door. Throw them out immediately. Estelle shouts, just what is your problem, old man? Trying to brush us off like bugs? General Morgan says, you're no different. Hiding your identity so you could try and finagle some information out of me. It's because you pull underhanded actions like that the bracers can't be trusted. Estelle asks, just where did you get off calling it finagling? It's your own fault since you didn't share information with the girl to begin with. General Morgan says, nonsense! Who in their right mind would leave an incident this big in the hands of a mere civilian group? I swear, of all the stupid things Maybell could have tried to pull, hiring a bunch of kids like this and getting in the way of our search party... Scheherazade asks, how about you cut the crap, General? Why do you think we've had to come all the way from Roulette to begin with? It's because when it comes down to it, you military morons can't do your job. General Morgan gasps, what did you just say? Estelle whispers, holy cow. Joshua whispers back, Scheheraz's really pissed, all right. Scheherazade said, for the past few months, you've known about the string of burglaries which seem to be the work of the Sky Bandits, right? And who, knowing full well it was them, dumped the workload onto the guild instead of looking into it themselves like they should have, huh? And now, the second this incident happens, you get on your high horse with an attitude, yet you've got nothing to show for it, no hostages or even the location of the missing airliner. Don't you think that's an embarrassment to the entire kingdom? General Morgan bellows, silence, girl! The military is an organisation that runs on discipline and does not take action on a whim. Unlike a group I know of who didn't think ahead and let the Sky Bandits escape, so enough with your insolence. Scheherazade says, so you're really looking for a fight, aren't you? A gentleman's voice says, how sad it is to see such discord. Oh, it's a spoony bard. The blonde-haired man says, strife brings nothing to be borne, but only extends the barren wilderness within our hearts. Let me sing a requiem for you all, one to soothe your parched souls. A gentle yet wistful tune, to bathe your brittle spirits, and cause the deserts of your hearts to bloom. I'm not going to sing, but the blonde-haired man sings and sings and sings. The blonde-haired man laughs. It looks like you all understood what I was trying to get across. What is it that is most precious above all? That's love and peace, baby. General Morgan coughs. I think it's about time for the search party to be returning with their reports. The sentry replies, "That's right, General." General Morgan says, "I should get back to my duties and make sure you don't let those kids in again. Oh, and cancel any further checks on the travellers along the Icen Road. Having these kids around any longer will just be an eyesore." The sentry says, "Right away, sir." Estelle grumbles, "He ran away." Joshua says, "Wish we could escape. He's still right behind us, isn't he?" The blonde-haired man laughs. "No matter which country you visit, military men lack romanticism. But you lot, on the other hand, appear to appreciate my aesthetic sense." Estelle laughs. "You know, maybe we should get going ourselves." Joshua nods. "Yeah, good idea. We had a bit of trouble, but we did manage to get some information." Scheherazade says, "After we head back to Bose, how about we think about our future plan of attack?" The blonde-haired man asks, "Where are you going?" "Wait for me. I mean, please wait for me." The blonde-haired man says, "Let me try and introduce myself again. I'm Olivier Lenheim, a wandering bard and musician by trade. As you already know, I'm an Erebodian touring your fair Liberl." Estelle says, "I'm Estelle, and..." Now, wait a minute. Why do we have to introduce ourselves to you? Joshua says, "Easy, Estelle. He did intercede for us back there. I'm Joshua." Scheherazade says, "And I'm Scheherazade. Things are getting pretty heated, and I'm glad you stepped in before something really bad happened. Let me just say thanks." Olivier laughs. "You've nothing to thank me for. I only did what any person who loves beauty and peace would have done. However, if you insist, how about going out on a date with me for a day?" Scheherazade says, "I'm going to have to pass on that. First of all, I don't have that sort of free time." Olivier sighs. "That's too bad." "All right then, I guess I'll accept Joshua as a substitute." Joshua asks, "What do I have to do with any of this? Please don't involve me in your questionable humour." Olivier says, "Well, that's odd. I didn't mean it as a joke." Joshua says, "Saying that makes you even more questionable." Estelle says, "Now just a minute. How come you didn't invite me on a date?" Olivier asks, "You?" I don't know how to put this, but you're a bit lacking in the sexy department. You might want to think about taking a lesson or two from your friends here." Estelle yells, "Well, excuse me for not being sexy. And just what do you mean by saying I should take a few lessons from Joshua?" Joshua says, "Calm down, Estelle. I think you're cute enough just the way you are. Though I guess it's true, you are a bit lackluster in the sexy category." Estelle groans. "What did you just say?" Scheherazade sighs. "Oh, good grief. Anyway, like I said before, we're busy. I'm sorry that there's not a better way to thank you, but we've got to get going." Olivier says, "Then how about you take me along with you to the city of Bose? This is my first time in Liberl, after all, and I'd like to request a guide." Scheherazade says, well, if that's all you want, then I don't mind. Estelle says, Shehra, now just a second. Scheherazade says, it's the least we can do, and we're headed to the same place anyway. Plus, acting as a guide is one of Abrace's many duties. Estelle sighs, oh, all right, I guess we're stuck with him until then. But what if we try to sink his poisonous fangs of lust into Joshua? Joshua is taken aback. Estelle? Estelle says, don't you worry, Joshua. I'll save you from his perverted attentions if he tries anything funny. Joshua asks, what is it exactly that you think he'll try? Olivier says, please don't refer to me like I'm some sort of ferocious beast. I'd rather that you called me a hunter of love. Even love stealer wouldn't be that bad of a title either. Estelle pouts, are you right in the head? Olivier asks, so how about it, everyone? Shall we leave for Bose? I'm counting on you all to get me there safely. Now let's be off. Estelle sighs. Who died and made you leader? Hey, wait a minute. I'm not done warning you about the grisly fate that awaits you if you sully Joshua's innocence. Oh, okay. So let's take a look here at Olivier. Olivier Lina. Oh, he's got a gun. He's got a gun. A needler is what it's called. He can quick draw Howling bullet. What's his orb lead looking like? Oh, okay. We can set some more stuff too. If we had any. If we had any. That's alright. That's alright. Okay. Let's, we can't just barge through, can we? No, I didn't think so. The sentry says, I could hear the general yelling all the way out here. What in the world did you guys do to piss him off like that? Yeah, we exist, I think is the right way of putting it. And we're on the Ison Road, heading south once more. No arts, because we need fire. Whoa, he's got... Olivier has 346 MP. As you do.
Good to go.
And he's level 13. Shehrazade's going to join him soon. Let's see what his basic attack looks like. Okay. That's a thing. right in his coiffed perfection.
Oh, are we done already?
And there we go, Scheherazade level 13. And she has learned Bind Whip. We have some tender poultry. Oh, she can one-shot. It's interesting that not Edward's gun has a range.
We're good to go.
That would, I think, be a little bit longer. Anyway. Quick draw fires off several rounds in the blink of an eye. Let's see what that does.
Take that.
That does that.
Enjoy the show.
It's trigger happy, essentially.
Oh, are we done already?
We just turned in time. Not that it's an issue with just one enemy.
Piece of cake!
It is remarkably a lot easier with 4 in the party. And back to Bose we are. Olivier says, so this is Bose, is it? It's more urban than I'd imagined. That building over there is Bose Market, no? Estelle says, well, you seem to be quite knowledgeable. Are you sure this is really your first time in the Belle? Olivier says, I was smart enough to buy a tourist guidebook before I left. One published by your very own Belle News, no less. Estelle asks, a guidebook? Do they really sell such things? Joshua says, I don't know how to say it, but we live in a really convenient age. Scheherazade asks, so do you intend to go shopping at the Bose Market now? Olivier says, yep, and after doing a bit of window shopping, I plan to dress up and dine out. According to the guide, there's supposed to be a 3-star restaurant in town. 3 stars. Estelle says, right, the place we ate at with the mayor. What I mean to say is, I guess this is the place. Joshua says, the Anti-Rose, authentic La Belle cuisine, or so they say. Olivier says, "Indeed, no doubt this is the place. I'm quite looking forward to it." Scheherazade says, "But it's supposed to cost a pretty mirror," I was going to say pretty penny, "if you decide to go with a full course meal. I'd have to recommend a normal bar any day over this." Olivier says, "Worry not, my fair lady. I've brought sufficient travel expenses, and if that's not enough, I'll earn more with my superb skills." Joshua asks, "Superb skills? You're not talking about your songs and musical renditions, are you?" Estelle asks, "Can you actually earn Mira with that crap?" Olivier says, "Ha! I've starred as the main opera singer at the great theatre in the Erebonian capital before. If I remember right, I once earned 1,000,000 Mira in a single night." Estelle sighs, "Big fat liar." Olivier says, "All right, everyone, good work. I guess this is farewell until fate brings us together once more. Adios, amigos." And off he runs. Estelle asks, "What horror have we unleashed on this poor innocent city? Is everyone from Erebonia a weirdo like that?" Joshua says, I don't think I like the idea of that being the Empire stereotype." Estelle asks, "Huh?" Joshua says, "What I'm trying to say is that I think the majority of the people there are quite serious. I read in a book that their ethos respects the strong, silent type." Estelle says, "So what you're saying is that he's simply a weirdo because he's an artist?" Scheherazade laughs. "Now just hold up there, Estelle. If the artists of this world heard that, they'd be less than pleased." "Let's see. We need to report the information we got out of the General to Legrand." Joshua says, "And it would be best if we let Mayor Maybelle know after that too." Estelle says, "So first we visit the guild and then the mayor's residence." "Okay, let's get going." To the guild we go. Go through the door, not the window. That's the not tradesman's entrance. Oh. Okay, we need to go to Revenue Village in the very near future. The Nibelheim Valley Monster. For 2000 Mira, it's medium difficulty. A ferocious monster known as a Master Cryon has been spotted roving the Nibel Valley. Bracers from this branch are requested to deal with this threat immediately. And the West Bose Monster, which is also from the Bracers Guild for 1200 Mira, difficulty of medium. A ferocious monster known as a Thunderquake has been spotted roving the West Bose Highway. Bracers from this branch are requested to deal with this threat immediately. Oh, okay. As you do. We need to report, don't we? We reported the results of the Elise Highway Monster. We got 1,000 monies and 4 BP. We also reported the results for Ingredient Seeker. We got 800 monies and 3 BP. And for the East Bose Monster, we got 1,000 monies and 4 BP. We have advanced to Junior Bracer 7th class, and we've received the Eagle Eye Quartz as a perk. Legrand says, "Good work. It looks like you managed to achieve your objective. Come back again if you have anything else to report." Well, now we need to talk, I think. Legrand says, "Oh, it's you kids. So did you find out anything about the incident?" Estelle laughs. "You bet. Valuable information at that." Estelle relayed the information they had obtained from General Morgan. Legrand says, "The Sky Bandits and the Capua family. You're right, that is valuable information. It looks like we'll be able to decide on a policy for the Bracers Guild related to this." However, I'm surprised to hear that General Morgan is an even bigger bracer hater than I had originally thought. Estelle says, yeah, I was really surprised myself. In Relent, the job of a bracer is pretty much respected by everyone, so to encounter someone that hates bracers that much... Legrand says, don't worry about it. General Morgan is an exception. Under normal circumstances, the Royal Army and the Guild maintain a pretty good cooperative relationship. However, it looks like this time you're going to have to deal with a lot more than you bargained for. Scheherazade says, well, then I guess we'll have to try and make steady efforts while maintaining a low profile. But it looks like these recent burglaries are also the work of the Sky Bandits, right? Legrand replies, yes, taking into account the incident in Relent, it's pretty clear who's behind these. To call them burglaries is one thing though, because most of the stuff that's been stolen hasn't been all that valuable. I would never have thought that they would go so far as to commit a heinous crime like hijacking the Linda. Estelle says, now that you mention it, that is rather odd. The burglary that happened in Relent was also rather mild in comparison. Joshua agrees, yeah, and to hijack an airliner and then to turn around and demand a ransom from the royal family, the risks there are greater than any potential reward. Scheherazade says, in light of that, we should probably do a little more on the investigative side ourselves. So that means going to the mayor? Okay, to the mayor. To the mayor. Mayor. No, we're not going to Kershey's bar. Oh, hello. Nial says, come on, Missy, I'm begging you, please let us in. If I could just get a comment from the mayor, I'd be on my merry little way. Dorothy adds, yep, that's right, and of course I'd need a photograph too. Leela says, I'm sure the mayor would be flattered, but she's extremely busy. I'm going to have to ask all those without an appointment to leave. I hope you can understand the situation. Niall says, come on, please. For an incident this huge, we hardly know anything about the circumstances surrounding it, and I have an obligation to inform the readers. Leela says, but... Dorothy asks, yeah, what about the readers? We can probably reach double the number if we have the mayor grace the cover. She's said to be very beautiful after all. Leela sighs. Niall says, Dorothy, why did you have to go and say something like that? Dorothy asks, huh? But it was you who was saying the same thing, remember? You said if we didn't have any news to go on, we could lure customers to buy the magazine by featuring the sexy mayor on the cover. Niall cries, you idiot! Leela sighs. Niall says, miss? Leela says, well, aren't you two a couple of interesting visitors? I'll make sure to tell Mayor Maybelle about the details of our conversation. At the moment, however, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Niall says, wait, this is a misunderstanding. Leela says, very slowly and calmly, please leave. Niall sighs, fine. Dorothy asks, so are we going to be okay not getting a photograph of the mayor then? Niall sighs, please. For the love of Aidos and my sanity, just keep your mouth shut. Dorothy calls out, Niall, wait for me! And off they go. Leela sighs in relief. Whew. Huh? Estelle says, good afternoon, Leela. Leela says, "Oh, it's you Braces again. Did you just return from the Harkin Gate?" Estelle says, yeah, something like that. So, those who you just turned away? Leela says, "A bunch of unscrupulous individuals." Estelle asks, "Really?" Leela says, "Those miscreants said they planned to use the mayor to make some quick mirror, but as long as I'm here to protect my mistress, I won't allow that to happen." Estelle blushes. I see. Joshua asks, "You're really serious about your job, aren't you?" Leela nods, deadly serious. "That's because it's my duty. Anyway, why don't you all come inside? The mayor is waiting for you." Well, in we go, I guess. The butler Maynard says, "I'm glad to see you all again. Mayor Maybell has been excitedly waiting your report." Well, you could tell us where she is. Is she? I'm guessing she's upstairs, which would mean we can have a little fiddle around down here. Oh, anything yet? Nothing down there. Oh, Leela, hello. Leela says, "General Morgan has come here to visit on several occasions. He's a little difficult to describe, but what I can say is that he is a respectable man. There's no doubt in my mind about that. But in both a good and a bad sense, he has the temperament of a military man." Well, we're not getting anything from Leela's room. Building, no, nothing in here. Here we go. Mayor Maybell says, "Dealing with complaints from the citizens, late deliveries of goods to the Bose market because of the airspace being a no-fly zone, servicing the sewer facilities, selecting a congratulatory gift for Her Majesty the Queen, harm incurred by monsters on the New Ansel path. When will all this paperwork finally end?" Estelle coughs. Maybell says, "Hello? Oh, are you back already?" Joshua says, "You look pretty busy, so would it be better if we came back at a later time?" Mayor Maybell coughs. No, you're fine. So you found out something from General Morgan, right? I'd like to hear about it." Maybell continues after the report. "Good work. I feel like I have a much clearer picture of the situation now. First, there was a hijacking by the Sky Bandits, and now a ransom demand. The situation is much more serious than I had originally anticipated." Estelle says, "If the General hadn't found out we were Braces, I think we could have learned more, but..." Maybell says, "No, it's all right. I'm just glad to know it wasn't a crash. With this information, I should be able to take effective countermeasures with the city. Now I need to think of a way to inform the citizens of Bose and deal with the families of the passengers." Joshua says, "I imagine that'll be quite a difficult task considering that you're already as busy as you are." Maybell laughs. "Well, that's just the duty of a mayor. And since the identity of the criminals is now known, may I ask that you continue your investigation of the incident?" Scheherazade says, "Of course, that was our plan to begin with. We've already had a run-in with these Sky Bandits before, and I'll wager the honour of the guild that this is one group we cannot simply leave up to the Royal Army." Estelle nods. "Yeah, that's for sure. There's Dad to find, and then we need to deal with these Sky Bandits once and for all." Joshua sighs. Estelle asks, "What's with the look, Joshua?" Joshua says, "I was just thinking, and no matter which way I look at things, I just can't believe it." Estelle asks, what can't you believe? That Dad could get beaten by a bunch of sky bandits. Basing my judgment on the ability of the group that appeared in Roulette, Scheherazade nods. I'm in agreement with you there. Cassius could have easily dealt with a group of that caliber. Estelle says, come on, Joshua, you too, Shahara. You're giving him way more credit than he deserves. He's pretty good, I'll give you that, but I think it would be a bit of a stretch to take on an entire group. Maybelle asks, do you mind if I ask you something? Are you trying to tell me that your father was aboard the airliner? Estelle says, oh, I didn't mention that. I'm embarrassed to say it, but yeah, he was. Not to mention he's a bracer too. His name's Cassius Bright. Maybelle cries, did you just say Cassius Bright? Estelle stutters, yeah? Why? Do you know my dad or something? Maybelle replies, I've never met him in person, but I've heard a great deal about him. I'm sorry, I just don't know what to say, but we might be able to use this to get some information from the army. Estelle asks, excuse me, Mayor? Maybelle says, I'm very sorry, and I can empathise with what you must be going through. If there's anything I can do to help you clear up this incident, then I am at your disposal. If there's anything you need, please don't hesitate to ask. And we're back outside. Estelle says, I wonder what's up with the mayor. As soon as we mentioned Dad's name, she got all surprised. Joshua says, you're right, but I guess I can imagine where she's coming from. The mayor and the general have known one another for a long time, after all. Scheherazade says, well, let's not worry about that right now. The real question is, where do we go from here? Estelle says, just searching around blindly for the airliner or sky bandits probably won't amount to anything, right? I mean, if that's all it'd take, then the army would have found them a long time ago. Huh? What's the matter with you two? Joshua says, Estelle, you've matured. If it had been the same year as before, you probably would have said something like, let's just comb the entire region. Scheherazade says, I never thought I'd see the day when those words would come out of your mouth either. My heart's too full of emotions for words. Estelle glowers, so what are you two trying to say? You can be so rude sometimes, I hope you know. Joshua laughs. We were complimenting you, Estelle, seriously. Scheherazade says, unfortunately, unlike Roland, the Bose region is enormous. I'm really hoping for a clue right about now. Estelle says, a clue, huh? All right, wasn't that Nial and Dorothy we saw in front of the mayor's place earlier? He seemed pretty starved for a story, but he's got to know something by now, right? Joshua says, it's true he arrived in Bose a little before we did, so I think it may be worth talking to him. Estelle says, I wonder where they went. Where would they go? Where people are. Particularly not Edward here. Oh, who are you? Mirano says, I'd really like to leave my father's business deals up to Simon, but he still lacks understanding of the business world, and it would be a perfect time for Borden to take advantage of the situation. But I guess if I get overwhelmed, I'll get Simon to help me out. Whoever those people are. Sarah says, I may not look like it, but I run the kitchen at the mayor's residence. And though I can't cook anything like the Anti-Rose, I can still whip up a decent meal. The mayor's been so busy recently, so I need to at least get her to take in some nourishment. Yes, if you can hear that, that's Dawn trying to tunnel through her steps. Anyway, let's talk to Not Edward, see what he's learned. Olivier says, this marketplace is much more lively than I could ever have imagined. It was definitely worth seeing. Oh, that's all he had to say. And Dorothy clearly isn't in here. Father Holstein, he says, Sister Rosa is an extremely serious and dedicated individual. Oh, I think it would do us some good, though, if she wasn't so uptight. The local tone of the people in Bose carries an air of freedom. While doctrine and commandments are important, I'd like this church to be more involved in the region. I see. They wouldn't be in the guild. Kershey's bath. I reckon a bloke who just sits around all day with a half-smoked fag in his mouth is probably in here somewhere. Probably this bloke half in his cups. Niall says, oh, god damn it. This ain't a joke, you know. Estelle says, well, we found him, but he's drunk off his arse. Was having his article rejected really that much of a shock to his system? Scheherazade says, he's just acting like the man he is. Men are pigs, after all. Though he seems to have forgotten that alcohol is a drink to be consumed, not a drink to be consumed by. Estelle says, you're one to talk. Don't they sometimes call you bottomless, Shahara? Scheherazade says, oh please, bottomless is much more suitable for a woman like Aina. I, on the other hand, can hold my liquor. No matter how much I may drink, my face and my disposition remain unriddened. So don't you dare group a fun-loving drinker like myself with the same category as this clumsy lush. Estelle says, oh come now. When you get drunk, you lose it completely, and everyone around you gets a heck of a show, admit it. Joshua says, it's certainly true that Aina is like a bucket to Shahara's sieve, but no matter how you look at it, they're both pretty bottomless. Scheherazade says, I'm sensing disrespect, children. Niall groans, where am I? Joshua says, good, you're awake, sort of. Drinking so much is not good for your health, you know. Niall says, my head. What the? You're that bracer trainee, aren't you? Oh my goddess, what the hell am I doing in Relent? I thought I'd made my way to Bose. Estelle asks, what are you mumbling about, you sponge? You are in Bose, and so are we. Niall groans, well, damn, don't scare me like that. And I see you've got a lovely lass with you. Scheherazade says, name's Scheherazade Harvey. The pleasure's all yours, I'm sure. I'm the mentor of these two. Niall says, Scheherazade. Sorry about that. Niall continues, are you the infamous Silver Streak by any chance? Scheherazade says, oh, you humbled me, sir. I take it you've heard of me then. Niall says, only rumours, I'm afraid, but yes, I know your name. You're one of the top young bracers, if I'm not mistaken. Which means you three are here to investigate the incident as well, I suppose. Scheherazade says, oh, so you do have some brains left in there after all that booze. I'm impressed. Estelle asks, you find anything out? We saw you by the mayor's house. You seemed pretty troubled. Niall whispers to himself, damn, they saw that? Yes, I was looking for clues and couldn't find any. Estelle grins. That's what I figured. Niall says, damned army's regulations on the spread of information really restrict what I'm able to learn anyway. And if I try to consult General Morgan at the Harkin Gate directly, I'll be held up for inspection for who knows how long. So I figured I'd at least try to score an interview with the legendarily voluptuous mayor, but a maid turned me away outright. And to top it all off, that useless girl kept screwing everything up. Everything! Oh, great Aidos. Tell me, what did I do to deserve this shabby life? Estelle says, well, you did try to do an exclusive on the mayor's chest, but if you want information that badly, we might share some of ours with you. Niall says, huh? Estelle says, we're actually investigating the incident on Mayor Maybell's behalf right now. So naturally, we've met with the mayor and General Morgan too, for that matter. Niall says, holy crap, you're serious? Estelle grins. Yep, totally. Niall says, score, and the goddess gets a point. Blessed be the bounty of Aidos. Please, I beg of you, tell me everything, every last detail. Joshua says, we'll be glad to. However, aren't you forgetting something, Niall? Niall says, huh? Scheherazade says, information isn't free, you know. We'll scratch your back, but you need to scratch ours first. And get that look off your face. I totally do not mean that literally. Niall asks, you want Mira or something? My research funds are long exhausted at this point, I'm sorry to say. Joshua says, we're not interested in your money. We just find it fascinating that you made your way to Bose right after this incident occurred. Seems like you might have heard some interesting things yourself. That being the case... Niall groans, and here I thought you were a nice kid. Turns out you're just a slimy little leech like me. I'll tell you what I know, but rest assured it's not big news by any stretch of the imagination. Joshua says, as long as it's related to the incident, no matter how trivial it may seem, I'll take it. Just don't be stingy, give it to us straight, okay? Niall says, fine, I'll tell you everything on my honour as a newsman. I've got 2 clues to share, so if you're taking notes, I suggest you get out your pen and paper. Joshua nods. We're ready whenever you are. Estelle whispers, way to go, Joshua, you're on a roll. Scheherazade whispers, well, if he ever gets tired of being a bracer, we know he'll have a bright future in racketeering with those skills. Niall says the first clue is in the form of an eyewitness report from the village of Revenue, to the west. I talked to a villager who'd just come to Bose for a visit, and she told me something very interesting. Apparently, she knows a kid who saw a huge shadow flying overhead on the night of the incident. Estelle asks, a huge shadow flying overhead? Niall says, yep, airship, I told him, maybe even that missing one. But the army checked it out and found absolutely nothing. Estelle sighs. Oh, you meanie, you raised her hopes only to dash him straight away. Scheherazade says, so you're saying someone saw something, but it was probably unrelated to anything. Niall says, that's what I'm saying. I warned you it wasn't big news. And I went to a lot of trouble to get this sad morsel too, what with that information embargo in place and all. Joshua says, well done. Now let's hear that second clue of yours. Niall sighs, fine. The other thing I learned is that the military's intelligence division is on the move. Estelle asks, intelligence division? Scheherazade says, I've heard rumours about them. It's a new royally sanctioned branch of the army in charge of intelligence gathering and dissemination. Niall nods. That's the one, yeah. Supposedly, they're so elite that they can even stand toe-to-toe with the royal bodyguards. The man they put in charge, Colonel Richard, is apparently quite the whiz kid. With him on the case, they say this incident is as good as solved already. Estelle mulls things over. Doesn't seem like your information will be of much use to us in our investigation. Niall snaps. Yeah, well, can't say I didn't warn you. Sorry, couldn't help much on your end. But a promise is a promise. I scratched. Now it's your turn. Joshua nods. Of course, a deal is a deal, after all. Joshua told Niall all about the incident at Rolent, as well as the information received from General Morgan. Niall asks, the Capuas, Sky Bandits, a ransom demand to the Royal House and the Airship Corporations? Good goddess, that's exactly what I needed. That's the missing link I've been killing myself to find. Joshua asks, caught your fancy, didn't it? Niall nods, absolutely. I can definitely write my article now. I can't be wasting my time getting drunk here. I have to find Dorothy post-haste. See you later, you wonderful people, you. And off he trots. Estelle says, wow, his spirit's certainly lifted fast. Joshua says, well, he was chasing a big story pretty unsuccessfully until we came along. It's only natural. I'm glad we could help him out. Estelle says, well, look at you. From Mr. I'll break your kneecaps if you don't talk to Mr. Nice Guy in under a minute. Talk about a split personality. Joshua says, stop thinking weird things about me. I was just negotiating, a little give and take, nothing more. Scheherazade says, a bad boy exterior with a good boy inside, or is it the other way around? Either way, I'm sure the girls love it. But anyway, I guess we've only really dealt with scrupulous people thus far. We're pretty lucky in that regard. Start dealing with weirdos, and that's when you'll need to bust out some really questionable negotiation techniques. Estelle asks, why are you looking at me when you say that? Anyway, that aside, was anyone else a little bothered when Niall talked about that huge flying shadow thing? Joshua asked, that eyewitness report from Revenue? I'd say there's a strong chance that there was nothing to it if the army already checked it out. Estelle replies, yeah, but I mean, it's not like the army is totally infallible. They could have missed something. It wasn't General Morgan himself, after all, but one of his men, and some of those guys are pretty thick-headed. Joshua nods. That is true. Probably worth looking into. Certainly can't hurt at any rate. Scheherazade says, the two of you are starting to get the hang of this, I see. Ravenue is a small village in the west. It thrives on fruit cultivation and exporting. Best way to get there is to head out onto the West Bose roads for a bit, then turn north onto the mountain trail. At which point, we'll just be a stone's throw away. Estelle nods. Got it. Well, I guess I know where we're headed in the next episode. To the west. So if you've made it this far, thank you very much for watching. We hope you have a wonderful day, and we will see you in the next episode.